Well, we're going to talk a little bit about how can we talk with God. That's very interesting because here in your new book, it says, don't look now, but God is talking with you. So is God talking with me right now?
I think that we are really, well, let me begin by saying that most people have this idea that God is someplace outside of us. But my understanding is that divinity resides within every sentient being. And if that's true, then God is talking to us all the time, eh, coming through us and talking with us through our thoughts, our feelings, our energies. So, yes, I do think that God is talking with us all the time. Some people call God's messages, women's intuition or a psychic hit, or I had an epiphany, or I had a brilliant idea, but it's all the same thing. We're just calling it by different names because we don't want to be ridiculed or made fun of.
Yeah, sometimes we have these hunches. We feel like we're getting messages. We don't know where they come from,
Yes,
and
but
then
I know where they come from.
yeah. And the main message is be grateful in advance. Because not only be grateful, of course, we got to be grateful. That's a remedy for everything, but be grateful in advance.
Well, because God said to us, even before you ask, I will have answered. It's a very famous saying
Yeah,
from Scripture. Even before you ask, I will have answered, saith the Lord. So, I always assume that even before I ask for something, it's on its way. So, of course, I'm grateful in advance. And by grateful in advance, we are expressing an energy of knowing, an energy that we are aware of what is going to be occurring.
yeah,
That's a demonstration of faith. And my experience has been that your mental energy projects into the universe and acts as a magnet.
yeah,
I believe that our energy pulls to us what it is we're thinking about most consistently and most frequently.
but yeah, when we appreciate little things,
I agree with you completely.
yeah, but being grateful for little things, for small, small little things, that changes our, you know,
Grateful in advance.
yes,
That's the trick.
exactly. So, sir, I'm pretty sure most of my viewers who are watching my kind of podcast, they know your biography, they know about you. But if you would like to cover a little bit so people would know more about you, what happened? That was in 1994 when that car accident happened, right?
Yes, I was, you know, I had a very difficult 10-day period in my life. My relationship with my wife ended. I was very sad about that, but it wasn't acrimonious. We didn't have a huge argument. We just gently agreed with each other that our relationship simply wasn't working as well as we had hoped. So we agreed in a nice way that we would simply go our own way. So I left the marriage, even though we had two children, and we agreed on how I would visit the children and they would spend time with me. But I was very sad about that. But 5 days after I left the home where my wife and children lived, 5 days later, I had an, I lost my job. The corporation that I was working for decided they needed to downsize. They needed to lose some overhead. And I was, the last person they hired.
Yeah,
So, because of the seniority rules, they let me go first because I wasn't with the company that long, and they had a rule that, the people who were there the longest got to stay. So I lost my job. So I lost my relationship and lost my job in the same 5-day period. But wait, the world wasn't done with me yet. I'm driving to an appointment for an interview for another job. And I know I'm going to get the job because my old boss gave me a wonderful letter of recommendation. I never got to the interview because, as you mentioned about the car accident, an elderly gentleman, an old man, misjudged the distance between our two cars and he made a turn in front of me. But he didn't make the turn. He smashed right into my car. He smashed right into the driver's side of my car. And I was severely injured. I had a broken neck. The car was totaled. The car was completely demolished. But I suffered a broken neck. They told me at the hospital that I had a 3/4 inch, not a hairline fracture, but a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the seventh cervical vertebrae posteriorly. In other words, a break in my neck big enough to put a pencil through.
Yeah.
The doctor said to me when I came out of the anesthesia, he said, "You're very lucky because most people who suffer that big of a break in their neck die instantly because of spinal cord complications. But you didn't die." And he said, "The few who don't die are usually paralyzed from the waist down. You didn't suffer that consequence either. You're a very lucky person." He said, "It's really extraordinary that you escaped both outcomes." Then he looked at me. I'm lying on the table, of course. And he looked at me and he said, "So what do you intend to do with the rest of your life?" I couldn't get a job anywhere. Nobody would hire me because they fit me with a collar, a plastic collar, to hold my head up because my neck wouldn't support my head.
Yeah.
And they said it would take 7 or 9 months for my neck to heal. So I wore this collar and nobody would hire me because, finally, after 7 interviews, I couldn't understand why no one would give me a job. And then the seventh man said, "Mr. Walsh, I'm sorry, I've got to be honest with you. We can't hire you with that collar around your neck. Obviously, you have a handicap, you have a problem, and one wrong move while you're on the job with us, and we're paying your medical bills for the next
Yeah.
15 years. So we're going to come back to us when you're totally healthy, and we would hire you in 30 seconds." Okay, so I couldn't get a job anywhere. I was out of my savings. I ran out of my savings. I couldn't pay the rent on the small apartment that I was living in. The landlord evicted me, and I wound up living on the street. I had nowhere to go. I wound up living on the sidewalk. I was what they call in America a street person. And I lived on the street for a year, not for a couple of bad weeks or a couple of tough months, but for an entire year of my life. 2 weeks shy of 1 year. 50 weeks sleeping on the ground. I did have a tent. My former wife let me have the family tent, but I could get out from under the rain. But I was in the cold, sleeping on the ground, and going from person to person with my hand out. "Could you please help me with just a few coins, even just some coins? Because if I got enough coins from enough people, I could actually maybe have something to eat before the end of the day." And I was sleeping on the ground in the cold. And that went on, as I said, for 2 weeks shy of 1 year. Finally, I got off the ground. I managed to get a part-time job. I was a weekend fill-in person because they needed somebody to fill in for. This man didn't want to have to work 7 days a week. So they gave him weekends off and they gave me his job on Saturday and Sunday. I wasn't earning very much money, but just enough to afford a little flat. I was living in a flat above somebody's garage. And that's when I woke up at 4:30 in the morning one day, very angry with life. What does it take to make life work? What have I done? What have I done to deserve such continuing struggle? I was crying out, somebody tell me the rules. I'll play the game called life. Just give me the rule book. How does it work? What am I doing wrong? And I sat down and I wrote a very angry letter to God. And that's when I began receiving answers from God, answers that changed my life. I never intended Shoji to write a book. It never even occurred to me that it would become a book. But in this question and answer dialogue that I found myself falling into, the voice in my mind said to me, Neale, you will make of this one day a book, and it will be read by many people. And I thought to myself, no, nobody's going to publish a book because the guy claims to be talking to God. It's not going to happen. So you know what I did? I sent my notes, my handwritten notes, to a couple of publishers just to dare God. Okay? You said it will be a book? Show me. Because I wanted to find out whether I was just imagining the whole thing or whether I was really having a communication from someplace outside of my own mind. And a publisher called me. It wasn't a major publisher like Random House or Putnam, but it was a small publisher on the East Coast of the United States. But they called me and they said, we want to publish your book. I said, you're kidding me. No, they said, no, it's a great work of fiction. And I said, whoa, you're not going to publish it as a fiction book. It's not a work of fiction. And the publisher said, oh, we thought you were just wrote a story about a man who had an argument with God. I said, no. And the publisher said, Mr. Walsch, are you trying to tell me that you think this actually happened to you? I said, yes, of course it did. That's why I sent you the notes. He said, well, okay, we'll publish it as a non-fiction book, but you're not going to find many readers because nobody's going to run out to buy a book because a guy up in Oregon claims to be talking to God. You're not going to find 500 readers. And he was right. We didn't find 500 readers. We found 5 million. Not bragging, just saying. That's what happened. The book wound up selling copies in 37 languages. It was being sold around the world. I never could have imagined such a thing. So that's my story. That's what happened.
Well, like I said, I know the story very well. I read the book a couple times and all of them, and I watched the movie and everything. So I know the story. This is for my viewers who never heard it, maybe never read the book. It's an amazing story. And especially when you were in that apartment, 4 o'clock in the morning, or what time was it? And you are all desperate and you say, God, why? And suddenly you hear, that's very interesting. You hear the voice and you look around. Oh, who's talking to me?
Yeah, I thought at first there was somebody in the room.
Yeah.
I thought, what's going on? And of course, there was nobody there. And then I thought, oh, great. Now I'm losing my mind.
Okay,
I'm hearing voices.
That's in the top of everything, right?
Yeah. But, the voice in my mind kept on speaking to me. So I thought, well, okay, fair enough. I'll ask questions. And I wrote down the answers. I began writing the answers because they were so interesting to me. I didn't want to forget what I was being told. So I wrote down the answers just to keep a record. It was kind of like a journal. I was keeping a journal. This went on, by the way, for several days, not all at one time. I mean, every night for about 3 or 4 weeks, this was going on because I would be awakened at 4:23 in the morning, most mornings, between 4:15 and 4:30, I would wake up and I would have to continue this on paper dialogue. And so, okay, I did. And after a while, I had many, 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 many pages of handwritten notes. That's when I decided to send those handwritten notes to a publisher because I was told it would be a book.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought, we'll see about that.
Yeah. And now it's 134. It's been 134 weeks on the best seller list.
Yes, 134 weeks.
Yeah, 34. Yeah. That's amazing. You see, because this book, these messages, they came in the right time. That's what I'm thinking. Because it's an awakening right now. This is when it started about the 90s. And I think this is what people are very, very hungry for all this information. And then you sold that book. I remember the number. It's worth $1 million or $1.5 million or something like that. You guys sold it, the first book.
Yes,
Yeah.
1.5.
Yeah. It was amazing to you. Say, what?
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. I couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah. Especially just coming from the street and living in the tent and suddenly you're getting $1.5 million. Your book is published. And you say, what's going on here? Maybe God is talking to me.
Mhm. Yeah. If not, if I'm wrong, I'm going straight to hell
Yeah.
because the things that I was being told were directly contradictory of most of the doctrines and the dogmas of the world's religions.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Now, to me, these messages from these books, they just spoke to my heart, directly to my heart. And then you started, it was the publisher's idea to start to write the second book and a third book, or you just had the urge to continue getting the messages?
Well, I never stopped having my conversations,
Okay.
but it never occurred to me that there would be more than one book.
Yeah.
It's only after the first book, became widely read
Yeah.
that the publisher called me from New York and said, the old sign, the old saying, do you have any sisters like that at home?
Yeah.
So I said, he said, are you receiving any more messages? I said, well, yes, I continue to receive messages. All of us do. All of us are receiving messages from God all the time. He said, could you send us more of those exchanges? I said, sure, I would be happy to. So I sent them more notes, and they put out what became Conversations with God, Book 2.
Yeah.
And then they asked for more if they had more. And of course, I was continuing to have the conversation. So that became Conversations with God, Book 3. And so ultimately, we wound up with 9 Conversations with God dialogue books,
Yeah.
covering 3,000 pages.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that's what
No. Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Book number 3 was amazing. Book number 3. They were all good, but book number 1, number 3, I read it like 3 times, each of those books. But I had time at that. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. Now, I know it's very hard to write a book. It's not easy. You got to sit down. You have to have a discipline. You have to write something. It takes a couple years to write a book. How do you manage, especially in this age right now? Get up every morning and you have the discipline, or you just have all these messages coming to you. How do you do that?
Well, of course, the dialogue books, I wasn't, in the process of writing a book. I was simply having a dialogue.
Yeah.
Question, answer, question, answer. It was like taking dictation, really.
Yeah.
I was just taking dictation. So it wasn't like the average person sitting down to write a book. But then it's true, after the 9 dialogue books came through, I did write some books, on my own, what I would call narrative books,
Yeah.
expanding on the messages in the dialogue. And yes, for me, I would discipline myself. I set aside a time each day, usually 7 o'clock in the morning until 10.
Yeah.
My best writing time was 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. before the biggest part of my day began.
Yeah.
7 to 9 or 7 to 10, and I would write for 2 or 3 hours. But I disciplined myself to do it every day. At 7 o'clock, I would just make sure I was wide awake and in front of my keyboard and moving my present book forward.
Yeah.
And that's how I managed to write a book in 6 or 8 weeks. It doesn't take me a year.
Do you drink coffee when you write a book?
No,
How do
I
you?
don't. I can't drink coffee because I have a cardiac condition that
Yeah.
does not allow me to have caffeine.
Yeah.
So no caffeine, no coffee, no Coca-Cola, nothing with caffeine in it.
Yeah.
So I don't drink coffee. I
Yeah.
simply drink gallons and gallons of whiskey, like I am doing right now.
Okay. Well, it's 10:30 p.m. here. I'm in Europe, so I'm drinking coffee just to stay awake. I'm trying to get rid of coffee, but it just keeps me going. And yeah, this is amazing. You see how productive can you be just for 2, 3 hours a day, and you can,
Yes. Well, if you do it for 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can do a lot of writing.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
literally finish a book in 2 months.
yeah. Because people get up in the morning and they start scrolling the phone and they start watching some videos. And they go to work and they, drive in traffic for 3 hours and they come back home tired. There's no time for writing books.
I often say to people, you could write a book in literally 15 minutes a day.
Yeah,
People say, I don't have time to write a book. I don't have time to write a book. I say, no, 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 no. Everybody has 15 or 20 minutes
yeah,
a day. Everybody can find 20 minutes. Just set aside the same 20 minutes every day. It's routine that works because your mind becomes aware, becomes accustomed. Oh, yes, this is my writing time. So whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock in the evening, whenever it is, just decide this is my 15 or 20 minutes of writing
yeah,
time. And if you did that every day of the week, you'd be surprised how rapidly you can finish a book.
yeah,
And the book doesn't have to be this thick. It doesn't have to be like
yeah,
an encyclopedia.
yeah,
It can be, a regular,
yeah.
simple book.
And I think you don't have to set your mind, okay, I'm going to work for 2 hours or 3 hours, because it's the mind starts to, how to
Rebel.
rebel. Yeah, it says, no, I can't work that long. But if you say 10 minutes, okay, I can do 15 minutes. There's no
Yes,
problem.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's exactly the point. That is right. And as I said, the book doesn't have to be, a magnus opus. It can be very thin book.
yeah.
Yeah,
100 pages.
simple.
Yeah,
But in fact, people prefer books this size. They don't want to get a book that's that big. So I make sure that my books are very short and very simple, easy to read, like the book GodTalk. You can read it in
yeah.
45 minutes.
Do people still read books or they mostly watch right now or listen to audiobooks?
Or they read material online. They do read books,
Yeah.
but they read it online.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but people do, some people still like to have a hard copy in their
I enjoy
hand.
that. Yeah, I enjoy that.
They
I
can
have,
sit in their living room and sit in
yeah,
their easy chair and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
open a book up and maybe even
Yeah,
take it into the bathroom with them, whatever. Take it into the tub while they're taking a bath.
yeah. No, it's completely different. It's a different, yeah, I'm just gonna hold it here for my viewers.
It's a different world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different when you hold it in your hand and it's just a different energy.
Yes,
It calms you.
that's
Yeah,
been my experience.
yeah.
Totally different energy.
Okay, so now you wrote at your age, you just finished the last book. It's called God Talk. How long it took you to finish this book?
5 weeks.
5 weeks. It's the same 2 hours a day, 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 every day.
Yes, well, yes, but I was really motivated to finish it, And yeah, I finished it in five or 5.5 weeks.
Yeah.
A month and a half, and the book was done completely.
Yeah.
And because I knew what I wanted to say. You know,
Yeah.
when you know what you want to say,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of taking the time to put it
Yeah.
on paper.
Do you still hear the messages from God right now, or this all comes from you? How this goes right now?
I don't think there's any difference. What comes from me comes from God,
Yeah.
and what comes from God comes from me. See, I don't think that we're separate. I was told in conversations with God that God and we are one. We're one. So when you ask a question, does it come from God or does it come from me? The answer is yes to both questions.
Yeah.
Yes, it comes from God, and yes, it comes from me.
Yeah. By the way, this is the hardest concept to understand for people, that God and we are one, you
Well,
know?
we are, God gave me a wonderful, it was hard for me to understand, hard for me to accept until God said to me, Neale, let me give you a little metaphor. You are to God as a wave is to the ocean. God said to me, Neale, the wave is no different from the ocean. It's part of the ocean, but it's a singular arising of the ocean in individual form, a wonderful, powerful, glorious expression of the ocean itself.
Yeah.
Nobody would say the wave is the same thing as the ocean, but it is an arising of the ocean. And when that expression is complete, the wave recedes back into the ocean whence it came. So God said it's the same thing with you. You are an arising, you are an individual expression of divinity. And when your expression is complete, you will return to that divine state that we call God. You go
So,
home to God, which is why I wrote a book called Home with God.
so the wave thinks that it's a separate, apart from God, when it's up from the ocean. It thinks that it's individuality, but then only when it comes back into the ocean, it realizes that it's one with God.
Yes, that's true for most people. But we are an individuation of divinity, an individual expression of God.
Yeah, because
That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's my
yeah,
understanding.
yeah. Because I interviewed some people who had near-death experiences, and this is what they say. They say they realized when they were dead for a minute or two, whatever, they realized they are one with God, one with the source, with the energy, you know.
Yes.
So for my viewers, again, I read your books, but for my viewers, how your life changed after you published your first book?
Well, of course, everything was wonderful, easier, you know, all the good things in life that we all hope for, stability, security, you know, popularity, all the things we all want to
Yeah,
experience. I wound up experiencing. And it was a total change for me because of course, I was living on the street
yeah,
before the book was published. So for me, it was a dramatic shift, a dramatic change in my life.
yeah,
But suddenly I had sufficient financial support. I had total um, philosophical and psychological and emotional security. And I didn't feel alone anymore. That was the biggest change for me, was that I no longer felt alone. I felt that I was no longer lonely in my soul.
Okay, so you felt that God is with you all the time. This is why you
Yes,
didn't feel okay.
yes. And because I saw God in everyone else,
Yeah.
I began to see that, oh, I see. Everyone is an individuation of divinity. So when I began to see God in everyone else, I suddenly no longer felt lonely.
And you still keep that vision, you still see God in every person.
Except you. You're the worst person I've ever seen in my life. I can't
Because I,
believe I'm
because I
having
was
this
late.
conversation.
I was 4 minutes late. And that's why.
Just
So
having fun. Just kidding. Yes, of course I do. I see God. I see divinity in every person. And that's changed the way I interact, even with people I disagree with. I may have political or philosophical or spiritual differences of opinion with other people, but I never let my differences of opinion get in the way of my experiencing their divinity.
do you feel like you're going to write more books?
I don't think so. It's possible that I may write one final one before I leave the planet. I'm going to be 82 here in a few weeks, and I may write one final book, but I don't feel an urgent need to
Yeah.
do so.
Yeah, 40 books is pretty impressive already.
And there won't be any more dialogue books. That much I do know. No more
Yeah.
dialogue.
So you're not afraid of that.
No, no, I'm not. I'm not afraid of death because I know I'm going home. And so to me, death is just, let me share with you a little story. When my mother passed away, she was very, very ill, and she was in the critical care ward at the hospital. And they let us each have 5 minutes with her, myself and my brothers and my father. We each were given 5 minutes. And the doctor said, no, no more than 5 minutes. We don't want to stress her. So I went in for my 5 minutes with my mother. Of course, I had tears in my eyes, and I knew she was dying. And my mother looked at me and she said, "Sweetheart, don't cry. Make me a promise." I said, "Anything, anything. What? I'll promise you anything. What do you want?" She said, "Dance on my grave." What? I said, "What? You want me to dance on your grave?" She said, "Sweetheart, celebrate, celebrate. I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going back into the arms of God. Celebrate." This has been the challenge, not where I'm going. That's not the
Yeah.
challenge.
Wow.
So I did, believe it or not, a few weeks later after she passed, I actually went to her grave site in the cemetery. And I looked both ways to make sure that no one was watching because I didn't want anyone to think that I was
Yeah.
being sacrilegious.
Yeah.
But when I saw that the coast was clear, I got on her grave and I did a little soft shoot, did a little dance. I said, "This is for you, Mom. I promised I would dance on your grave." And I celebrated her journey back home.
Did she ever
So
come?
no,
Yeah.
no,
Did
so
you?
no, I don't fear death. And yes, to answer your question, she does come back to me.
Yeah.
My mother sometimes visits me in spirit, and I hear from her, and I think she's very proud of, what has occurred in
Were
my
you
life.
were you a published author in that time when she passed away? Were you or not yet?
No, no, I had not published.
Yeah. Yeah, my mother passed away in 2020. Well, she was 88 years old. But still, I'm thinking, where's she gone? Where'd she go? Is she happy?
Have you
I,
read the book Home with God?
yeah, of course, I read them all. Yeah.
Well, Home with God, in chapter 15, I tell people if you don't read the whole book, read chapter 15 of Home with God. That answers the questions that I've always asked. Where do we go? What happens? What's going on?
I read
Are,
that.
are they happy? Are they okay?
because a lot of people are curious about this, where the loved ones go, why they're not going to see them again, will they be able to contact them again, you know? So that's a very common question from people.
And the answer is, of course, yes. We will see our loved ones again. And the moment that we cross over, guess who will be waiting for us? All of our loved ones. They'll all those who loved us will be waiting for us, singing, "Welcome home."
How about the ones that didn't love us? You're not going to see them over there.
Yes, we will. We will see those there as well, and we will love them because we will suddenly understand
Yeah, what they
that
went
no
through.
one,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. We understand it because there's a saying, you until you walk in somebody's shoes, you don't know exactly what they went through. Yeah,
yes, precisely the way God loves us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But this happens with us here. The older we get, the more we start to understand people, at least in my opinion. You know, I'm not judgmental anymore. I'm not expecting anything from people. You know, I said it is what it is.
I think so, although it doesn't have to. We can get there when we're younger, but it
Yeah,
took me 50 years.
yeah,
I had to be on the planet for a half century before I began seeing some of the things you're talking about. But
yeah,
finally, when I was around 52 years old, I thought, wait a minute, there's more going on here than meets the eye.
yeah,
Or as Shakespeare said in his play Hamlet, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
yeah.
To be or not to be,
Like,
that is the question.
I'm gonna put this in the beginning of the video. To be or not to be. Do you believe in hell?
No, I, my understanding is that there is no such place as hell, that it's a creation of human beings who had to come up with some answer that would satisfy the question, well, what about evil people, people who do terrible things? Well, you know what I was told? This is going to be very dramatic. I'm sorry if this is going to offend some people, but I was told, Neale, everyone goes to heaven. There's no such place as hell. There's no other place to go. You created the idea of hell. You created the imaginary being called the devil. The earliest writers of the many scriptures of the world's religions created this whole fictional scenario.
Yeah.
So there is, in my opinion, there's no such place as hell. But if there is, I'm going there. Apparently, because I've been saying these things for so many years now. But it's like, a famous author said a few years ago about hell. Well, all the interesting people are there anyway.
But then, if you believe there is no hell, so it's like so much injustice here in this world, and it's like it's not right for some people to do whatever they want in this life. They don't care about
Well,
karma.
that's why we
Yeah,
made up the idea of hell.
yeah,
People who get away with bad things while they're alive,
yeah,
there should be some justice. There must be some justice. So, they came up with the biggest lie ever told. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. God never said that. God never said vengeance
I
is
know.
mine. Totally, but we had to come up with an answer for people who said, well, what about people who do bad things? Did they just get away with it? And I was told in conversations with God, no, they don't get away with it, not in the sense that you think. What happens when we go to the other side is that we relive our life. But here's the interesting thing, Sergey. I was told that we live our life from the point of view of all those whose lives we've touched. So we live our life from their point of view, and we experience how we made them feel. It's not the same as hell, but it's an opportunity for us to decide, oh, in my next lifetime, I'm never going to make anybody suffer or be injured or be harmed emotionally or physically in any way.
But then also there is a word called consciousness. Your consciousness, it's your punishment.
Yes, if you feel bad about something you've done,
Yeah,
that's
your little hell right there.
Yeah, so it's a little version
Yeah.
of hell.
Yeah, I'll say
And
so.
hopefully we decide I'm never going to do that again.
All right, now your latest book is called GodTalk, right?
That's correct.
Would you like to say a few words about this book, sir?
Well, the book contains 6 steps that allows us each to have our own opportunity for a conversation with God. The 6 steps are very simple. Number 1, possibility. We have to agree with ourselves that it's possible that there is a God who exists and it's possible for us to have a conversation. Step number 2 is worthiness. We have to agree with ourselves that we are worthy to have a conversation with God. It's not just the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury or the head ulama or the chief rabbi. You don't have to be a holy person or a prophet. Every one of us is worthy of having a conversation with God. Step number 3 is willingness. Once we agree we are worthy, we must be willing to have the conversation, even though most of society says that such a thing is not possible. And even though most religions tell us that if we claim to be having a conversation with God, we are a blasphemer. We are a heretic. We are an apostate. So religion tells us that it's not okay for us to say we're having a conversation with God.
It's only for the priests and only for the religious people, not for us.
Yes, exactly. So the third step is willingness. We have to be willing to overcome the cultural bias against the idea. Step number 4, wakefulness. Once we are willing to have a conversation with God, we have to stay awake and realize that God talks to us in 1,000 different ways across a million moments in countless lifetimes. For instance, God could even be sending a message to all people through a podcast hosted by a guy named Sergi. Who knows? Step number 5, acceptance. We have to accept the message we're receiving and not reject them and not say, oh, it's just my imagination. I'm just making it all up. It's just my imagination. I said that to God. How do I know this is not my imagination? God said, Neale, where did Mozart's music come from? Where did Michelangelo's art come from? Where does anybody's original creation come from? Oh, from their imagination. So God said, don't write it off and pretend it has no meaning simply because you think it's your imagination. What makes you think I would stop from using your imagination? And then step number 6, discernment. To be able to discern the difference between messages from the divine and the 1,001 messages that are coming at us every day from 1,000 different sources, from the internet, from television, from movies, from other books, from other people. So we have to be able to tell the difference between a genuine message from the divine within us and messages that are coming to us from other sources. Those are the 6 steps, and I explain those steps in great detail in the book titled GodTalk. So thank you for asking about it, and I think that people might enjoy giving it a good read.
Would you like to mention a website or another information where people can find more about the book?
Well, they can find more about everything that I'm involved with at my website, which is simply nealdonaldwalsh.com. Very simple. Couldn't forget it if you tried.
And now, if you don't mind, give me a couple minutes. I'm going to tell you how I known about your books. I left this for the end because I didn't want you to hang up on me. We got the podcast already. I'm going to tell you. Can I tell you?
Of course.
I was in prison for 2 years, 2014 to 2016 in America. I live in Europe, but I was in America. And something real stupid. I should have done 30 days only, but whatever. It guided me. This prison term guided me to your books, and it changed my view on life completely. And I was in my second year, and I met this guy because I was looking for somebody close to me, like a spiritual person. Most people in prison are not really spiritual. It's a lot of noise. Anyway, so what I was doing in the morning when they opened the gate, 7 o'clock in the morning, I grab my bag and I go outside and I find the most quiet place in the whole yard, like in the middle of the yard. And I met this guy. He was a Buddhist. He was meditating over there too in the yard. And we started talking to him. And he said, did you read this book, Conversation with God? I said, no, no. And he brought me the book and he gave it to me. This is his present. I have it here, right here from jail with my number. It's my number. Yeah, I'm not going to show it on the screen, but with my name and everything. And I read it and I was blown away by the message. Be grateful in advance. And I said, man, do you have more books? And he was giving me one of your book every couple days. He had all his books, all your books. So this is how I read all your books in prison. And I brought several back with me. And I remember I asked this guy, I said, do you know about this gentleman? Is he still alive? He said, yeah, he's only like 72 years old or something. I said, one day, maybe I'll meet him. And here I am. I met you, sir.
Wow. Fascinating story.
Yeah, I left it for the ending. So I don't know. Maybe you would say, okay, this guy's been in prison. I don't want to talk to him, but this is what happened.
I was in prison once, 3 weeks. I went there deliberately. I was a journalist. I was a reporter, and I was assigned the story to write it. I was told to write a story about conditions at the local jail. So they agreed to have me go to jail, and nobody else would know that I was a reporter. They all thought that I was, serving a sentence. And so we made up a big story that I had, cheated on my taxes or whatever, and I was serving a 3-year prison sentence. So nobody but me and the warden. The warden knew, but nobody else knew. None of the guards knew. Nobody else knew. I was there for 3 weeks. They give you a little bit of food, and sat down at the tables, and I wrote a story about what it was like to be in prison. So it was what they call in the journalism business an expose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's hard, but in the same time, it's an amazing. It was an awakening for me in some way because I start looking at life completely differently after
I'm
that.
sure you were. Yeah, I'm sure you
Yeah,
did. Of
yeah.
course.
When I got out, I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, there's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sky, there's a
yeah,
tree. Oh, I'm
yeah,
walking here,
right.
and I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. I couldn't put any
And
clothes on. It was an amazing
I can go
experience, and
wherever I want to
I
go.
can go
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah, and I remember I ran away to a coffee shop. There was a K Circle, gas station. I remember I was drinking coffee when I was before the prison, and I ran to that gas station. I got me a big cup of coffee, and I was drinking. That's the best coffee in my life. Yeah.
I really enjoyed being with you, my friend. Thank you for spending this hour with me.
Thank you very much, sir. So nice to meet you. And thanks again for all these books. They're amazing. And thanks again for writing them for me personally. Thank you.
Thank you for the chance to speak with you. And I appreciate these moments we've shared.
Likewise. Nice to meet you, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.